Hey everybody, I'm G, and I'm thrilled and honored to bring something brand new to you all. So you all know I love Sonic the Hedgehog. You love Sonic the Hedgehog, right? So a couple of years ago, I recorded an interview video for another YouTube channel that doesn't exist anymore, and I was looking at that footage and I thought, why don't we turn this into a series? So we're gonna start it off with me, but it's all about Sonic and what he means to me, but I'm also in the future going to invite other various guests, whether it be YouTube creators, Twitch streamers, content creators, cosplayers, all kinds of different varieties, talking about their favorite characters in the Sonic franchise and what they mean to them. I am thrilled and honored to present to you the debut of Sonic Sessions. So what was my first exposure or experience to Sonic 1 on the Mega Drive? I will probably have to say the first real experiences I got were either from the TV ads, comic book ads, and like reading in magazines about it, because as a kid growing up in '91 when Sonic came out, I was all about the mascot style characters. Like this was before I really started getting into Sega and getting into Sonic. I was big into Mario. So when Sonic rolled around, it hit me right at the core, and just his look and his style, he was different. You gotta go fast, you gotta move as fast as you can. It's not about complete precision jumping all the time. It's about getting from the beginning to the end as fast as you can, all while looking cool while doing it. That's when it really hit me just right. So what really made Sonic stick out was really just the fact that the Sega Genesis at that point was kind of it wasn't the new kid, but it was the newer kid in trying to break through a Nintendo world, the 8-bit cutesy kind of pixely sort of vibe that like the Mario style games had back in the day. So when you see a character like Sonic, you see how fast he moves, you see all the different colors in the graphic style. It has more of a softer but a bolder art style than Mario ever really did, at least not until the 16-bit era. So that's what really made him stick out from there as well. He's appealing enough to the kids that he still hits that sort of cute mascot vibe, but he also appeals to the teenagers and above because of his attitude, because he's not so soft around the edges, because he doesn't care what you think, and it shows. The music wasn't your typical beeps and boops that you heard of the NES era. It really reminds me of how the Sega Sound Driver really kind of stuck out and hitting that right generation at the right time, and that's exactly why I fell in love with it. Oh man, so yeah, Sonic 2 and all the hype around it. Now of course I already had my finger on the pulse on it because I was such a huge fan of Sonic 1, so when they announced Sonic 2, I was incredibly excited, and all the different little hints that they showed about the new character that really kind of stuck around. And you just, when he finally got unveiled and you saw Tails, or Miles Tails per hour, how they called it, haha funny. Tails is a good contrast to Sonic because Tails is a lot more wholesome character. He basically is the Sonic's yang to his yin. I still have one of the newspaper ads come in on Sonic Tuesday, and you actually get a free item when you buy a Sega Genesis and Sonic 2. All the hype that was surrounding, and then when the game dropped and then we realized, oh, not only did it live up to the hype, it blew that hype out of the water. Between that and Streets of Rage 2, Sega was really killing it in the sequels market back then. So yeah, it definitely lived up to the hype. Most of my neighbors and most of the kids in the playground and whatnot, they had Nintendo systems. Being exposed to Sonic and in the store, and then of course the Sega arcade games that my dad and I used to play in the arcade together, like Altered Beast, Outrun, Alien Storm, the ones that we actually played in the arcade. So we knew about Sega, but we hadn't made the jump to buy a Genesis yet because we were still playing our NES. My mom and my dad knew about the hype of Sonic the Hedgehog and how badly I wanted it. It was Christmas of '91. We got the Genesis, we got the pack-in, which was Sonic. I still have my not-for-resale copy of Sonic from back in the day. We got Sonic, we got Altered Beast, we got Arnold Palmer's Golf for my dad. Yeah, it was a wonderful morning. Did I enjoy him more than Mario? Without a doubt. And still do to this day. No offense to Mario, you know, yeah, Mario's great. But to me, it doesn't hold a candle to Sonic. So Sonic merchandise back in the day, I remember when I was really growing up, Sonic's initial time, there wasn't really a whole lot of merchandise that was actually really exposed to me, except for the one key piece, and I believe this was also a big factor as to why I became the kind of Sonic fan that I am, and that was the Archie comic Sonic, which I still have. Not only do I have a complete Archie comic collection of the Sonic, the Hedgehog series, but this is the very same issue 0 that I've had ever since I was a kid, and I still cherish it. And as far as ones that maybe I wish I got and I didn't get, it's really kind of hard to say going that far back in the memory. I did manage to keep as many of the Sonic memorabilia as I could. I mean, as you can see behind me, I've kept pretty much everything that I possibly could. I mean, are there things that I wish I had? Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, especially when the 20th anniversary, the Sonic Generations limited edition, the one that actually came out in PAL territories and in Japan, but we never got in the US. That's one of the biggest pieces of Sonic merchandise that I wish that I had. A couple of the other ones that actually really strike a toll with me would be like this one here, the 10th anniversary Dreamcast limited edition of Sonic Adventure 2. This is another piece that we actually didn't get in the United States, and it comes with a coin, it comes with a soundtrack. It's awesome. And that's something that really was beyond me, why Sega only just now is starting to bring us the limited edition Sonics like the one we got for Sonic Mania. But if there's one other piece of Sonic memorabilia that I also hold true to, this is the original Cal Toys Sonic the Hedgehog plush that came out back in the day when we had the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons. And there was a contest on the local station Channel 20 here in Houston, Texas. And basically, it was a series of questions. You answered it, you mailed it in, and you had a chance to win a prize pack. This was one of the key pieces in that prize pack. And it's still one of my most cherished pieces in my Sonic collection. I did manage to get the matching tails thanks to a buddy of mine recently. But there's so much merchandise for Sonic now that I could talk forever on all the ones that I could really want. But as far as what I've got now, I'm pretty thankful for what I have. But I'm also pretty thankful that Sega is, keeping the gravy train going. It's pretty awesome. So Sonic's other entries into the mainstream. Of course I remember the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloon. I remember specifically that morning because when we were kids, we had that tradition of watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And I had no idea that Sonic was going to get a balloon that year. And so when I saw him, I freaked out. And my parents were wondering, like, what's going on? It's like, it's Sonic! It's Sonic! And they're like, what in the world? That just shows just how powerful he was, that he was able to get in on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Other ways that he broke out into the media that I thought was strange. I remember that episode of The Simpsons, that Christmas episode, where Bart is, he's thinking to himself whether or not he should steal this video game in this open cabinet, and you see little knockoffs of iconic video game characters trying to tempt him into taking it. You see Mario, you see Luigi, you see Donkey Kong, and then a little purple hedgehog runs around and says, "Just take it, take it, take it, take it, take it, take it, take it," and it's obviously Sonic. And once again, I kind of freaked out on that. It's like, wow, come on, Simpsons, had to take a dig at Sonic like that. I thought it was pretty great. And I know one that I was like, oh wow, that's actually makes a whole lot of sense. Was that one that he was in a Progressive commercial with Flo? He shows up and it's like, yeah, we can insure you. He doesn't say a word. Like, he doesn't say a single word throughout the entire commercial. Flo basically talks to him. I thought that was actually pretty great. Yeah, I played Sonic CD, absolutely. I played it back in the day on Sega CD, and when I did get my own Sega CD, Sonic CD was one of the first games that I had to have. So Metal Sonic is my favorite villain out of the entire franchise. I mean, even more so than Eggman, Dr. Robotnik, whatever, or some of the other villains of the franchise. Metal Sonic is my favorite because just his design is just so awesome. I remember reading him as a kid or reading about him back in the day, and then seeing his look and seeing his design, the fights in it in Sonic CD. He is a badass. And I'm just like, even to this day, I still think he's one of my favorite characters in the franchise. I think it really did help give a little bit more weight and a little bit more levity to all the villains of Sonic. And it's not just all about Dr. Robotnik. Now, as far as Amy Rose goes, I'm a fan. I love Amy Rose. I especially love the evolution that Amy Rose has had over the years, because she went from being the damsel in distress to kind of the side character to help Sonic out to a more prominent, singular character. Like, she can basically strike it out on her own now, like she did in Sonic Boom. Love or hate the Sonic Boom game, she really kind of did. But at the very beginning, and one other cool thing about that I remember Sega trying to tie Sonic CD initially into the comic book. In fact, it's even in the instruction manual for Sonic CD in America. If you look at it, they tried to change Amy Rose into Princess Sally, which anybody who actually read the Archie comics knows that Princess Sally and Amy Rose are very far apart. But they changed it later on back to Amy Rose, but I thought that was actually great. Again, it gave a little bit more weight to the story of Sonic, that not only does he have to save the world, not only does he have to save the other animals in the franchise, but he also has to save Amy Rose, but at the same time, he doesn't really have the same sort of feelings for her that she has for him. Sonic saves Amy, and he's like, I love you, and he's just like, oh, whatever. It's actually pretty great. So as a Sonic nut, I had to own every single spin-off game that I could possibly get my hands on. And this is where I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, but my favorite has to be Sonic Spinball. I know Sonic Spinball gets a lot of hate in the Sonic community, and a lot of it comes from its difficulty. But if you really think about it, the board design of Sonic Spinball is brilliant. It really encourages you to explore the entire stage so you can find the Chaos Emeralds and then find the way to unlock more portions of the stage. You have more control than you would with an average pinball game because you are still moving Sonic. There is a little tiny bit of a delay, but once you get used to it, it's great. And I know people hate on the soundtrack. I actually love the soundtrack for Sonic Spinball. It's just between you and me. I also kind of geeked out for the cameo appearances of the Archie comic Sonic the Hedgehog characters in the bonus stage. I kind of geeked out a little bit for that. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, also known as Puyo Pop, and that actually came in the US. That was my first exposure to Puyo Pop, and I've become a huge fan of Puyo Pop because of it. I love that game. So many countless nights playing that game in versus with my sister growing up. It was a blast. It still is a blast. You know what's interesting about that? Sonic Spinball and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine both kind of came around at the same time, right? And how Sonic Spinball has tiny odes to the Sonic the Hedgehog Saturday morning cartoon, and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine has odes to the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog afternoon series. I totally didn't even realize that until just now. Mean Bean Machine is great if you like puzzle games like Tetris or Columns or anything like that. I think it's a fantastic game. The Game Gear version is just as good. Oh man. So, Sega Sonic the arcade game. I remember I was basically dying to play that game because I saw it in magazines and like Die Hard Game Fan and whatnot. I saw it in magazines, no arcades around because it was a Japanese exclusive. So it's like no arcade games around had it. And I thought, I'm never gonna be able to play this game back in the day. But then in the mid-90s, my family moved. And where we moved to, there was a theme park called Worlds of Fun. And in that Worlds of Fun, like we went there every now and then. And I remember the very first time I went in there and I went in the arcade. So I'm like, oh, can we go in the arcade? And my parents were like, oh, sure, fine. So we went in the arcade and we looked around and I saw like, you know, the usual suspects kind of games that were there. And sure enough, in the corner, they had Sega Sonic the arcade. And I was like, oh, sure enough, like 2 hours later, and I don't know how many quarters I plunked into it. It's fantastic. It's unique in the sense that it used a trackball, and there was a little bit of puzzle solving that you had to do along the way too. You couldn't just run your way from point A to point B because you'd just die all over the place if you did that. You had to time your jumps properly. You had to time your attacks properly, collect the right amount of rings, that way you can get the bonuses at the end. The music, the graphics were awesome. It was an outstanding game, and it still is a great game. Sega needs to port that game home somehow. We have the technology now. You can put it on, I don't know, you can put it on the Switch with touchscreen, and I think it would actually work perfectly fine. We had trackballs on the Master System. I don't get why it never came home. But now with Mighty and Ray, the other characters in Sonic Mania, I don't see why not. I think that's money. Sonic 3 hit me at a real good time. That was actually when I was really starting to really delve into video games. Really just become, I'm not gonna say the seed, because I would say the original Sonic was the seed. But Sonic 3 was really the water pot that made it grow. It is an incredible game. Nearly everything about Sonic 3 was just incredible. The graphics, the colors, the amount that you could do in each of the stages, the variety of different bonus stages, the soundtrack, oh lord, the soundtrack. All of it was just, it just hit me right here. I remember all of the hype surrounding it as well. It was really the first one to have a save system. It was the first one to introduce a new character, Knuckles, which I love Knuckles, he's great. There was just so much that Sonic 3 brought to the series that hadn't been done before, and it knocked it like, wow, bang, home run. The thing about Blue Sphere is that it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of trial and error, and then understanding when the speed jumps, trying to time how to get the spheres and how to get the right amount of rings, to get your perfects, to get your continues, to get your 50,000 coin bonus or point bonus. There's so much to Blue Sphere beyond just running and collecting rings and getting the right amount of rings that was in Sonic 2. And don't get me wrong, the bonus stage in Sonic 2 is great, but Blue Sphere just added a lot more depth to it. And I think it kind of rubbed people the wrong way because of its high difficulty level. It took me a while. I by no means did I do it on my first try to get all the Chaos Emeralds. But after a while, Blue Sphere really became my favorite minigame out of all of the Sonic games, just period. So the launch of Sonic & Knuckles, I really only gotta sum it up in 3 words. Rock the rock. I don't know if anybody remembers that MTV special that Sega had at Alcatraz, where they had that big Sonic & Knuckles tournament. That was a really big promotional giveaway for the game when it actually came out. All the advertisements, because you know, it was coming out right around Christmas time. Those are some of my absolute favorite video game commercials ever, with the elves that actually say, hey, we created this new thing called lock-on technology. You can play Knuckles in Sonic 2 and 3. Who's laughing now? Fat man! So awesome. I could really say that Sonic & Knuckles was really the first expansion pack for consoles. It wasn't a sequel, even though Sega might have tried to play it out like it was a sequel. Like, it really wasn't a sequel because the mechanics and everything were basically the same as Sonic. But the fact that you could actually plug Sonic 3 into Sonic & Knuckles was revolutionary in itself. So you could play Knuckles in Sonic 3, you could play Knuckles in Sonic 2, and then you can get the Blue Sphere full game with Sonic 1. It kind of was a cash grab, if you really think about it. It's like, at the end of the day, yeah, sure, it was, but it was awesome. It was still a great game. Was the lock-on technology a gimmick? Absolutely. I mean, there weren't any other lock-on games after that, so I guess it really was a gimmick. But it certainly did sell games, though. It didn't really bother me. Again, I thought it was a cool technology for the most part. I just wish that Sega had actually maybe done just more than once. That way it wasn't just that, oh, this was just for Sonic, because it was the full game. Or there was another stage that got removed or was never finished. I thought it would have been cool that if you locked on Sonic 3 into Sonic & Knuckles, you got that extra bonus stage too. Like, that's the only way you could play that stage. That would have been really cool. But other than that, I mean, again, it didn't really bother me, so I still enjoyed it. So 1994, yeah, when the 32X came out, I had to have it because it's like, oh, again, and this goes back to that additional, I guess, lock-on technology like Sonic & Knuckles. Maybe I was just a sucker for that back then, who knows. But I had to have the 32X. And I know the biggest thing about the 32X that was the major seller for me was Virtua Racing Deluxe. But the one that really made me a fan of it was Knuckles Chaotix. I know that it was kind of a strange take. It was kind of a strange sort of detour in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. But what's weird is that, I don't know if this might sound a little bit strange, but it's probably the most relaxing Sonic the Hedgehog game. Now, that's contradictory, I know, that you're playing a Sonic the Hedgehog game to be relaxed. It's strange, but if you really play it and you think about it, because a lot of it is the dynamic between you and the second character and the invisible tandem that actually whiplashes you throughout the entire stage. To me, there's just something addictive about that, because you're not constantly against the clock. You're not constantly trying to defeat enemies. You're not constantly trying to avoid falling off the stage. To me, it sets it apart and actually makes it worth playing. I mean, and beyond that, the absolutely beautiful graphics and the soundtrack. Goodness, the soundtrack. The Knuckles Chaotix soundtrack actually became my favorite soundtrack out of all the Sonic games. It's beautiful. It was wonderfully done. To me, I think Knuckles Chaotix probably is the most, dare I say, hidden gem of all the Sonic games. So with Sonic Mania, when I initially played it, I was addicted and I absolutely loved it. Because again, the nostalgia really was kicking in. Going back and playing it again, especially when playing Sonic Mania Plus, I feel that yes, it is one of the best 2D Sonic games out there. I think that what they did for the franchise and the reimagining of the old stages, I thought was great. The more that I played it, it didn't really bother me at first when I first played Sonic Mania. When I played through it again, I did realize that I felt that maybe it is a little bit too derivative of the old Sonic. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No. Especially considering that we've got a whole new generation of people that haven't even been exposed to the original Sonic the Hedgehog games. And for that, maybe at the end of the day, it being too derivative is a good thing. for the newer fans, and even for the old school fans who do have that nostalgia pangs for the old Sonic. For me personally, I think it's awesome. I thought they did an excellent job on it. It was great to put Sonic back into the positive limelight, but it's not my favorite 2D Sonic game. Just trying to think of how many secondary characters there are in the Sonic universe. Taking out the original trio, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and let's even put Amy Rose off to the side because she's prominent too. Everybody else in that, I'd probably say some of my favorite characters would be the aforementioned Chaotix. I absolutely love Mighty. Mighty the Armadillo is one of my favorites. Ray's Flying Squirrel is one of my absolute favorites. But if I had to pick one character that is my absolute favorite character within the Sonic universe that's not the original three and Amy, is Blaze the cat. Beyond the fact that I just love cats, but she is such a great character. The calm, cool, collective, kind of fire-spouting badass. I love her look, I love her design, I absolutely love the fact that she's back in the comic. And just, she was a great character. I love playing as her in Sonic Rush, and I'm glad that she actually got to be a lot more prominent. Of course, I can't go without talking about Shadow the Hedgehog or Silver the Hedgehog. I mean, Shadow's questionable solo game aside, he's just a great character. I think Shadow came at just the right time because it was right around that time where society was beginning to go through this defiance, like, I won't do what you tell me sort of phase. And I think that's why Shadow really hit the nail on the head on that. I loved his design too. He was a great villain to Sonic. Silver the Hedgehog. Even though, say what you will about Sonic 06, but I will say that Silver was a really cool character. And it just really makes me think that every time that he comes around, whenever they do any sort of like time traveling gimmick within a Sonic game, Silver should just pop out of the corner and say, "Stop messing up the past!" You know, he was pretty cool. In fact, I even named my cat after Silver because he was manic, he has the same look, and sometimes he doesn't shut up. As far as characters that I could do without in Sonic, it's really hard for me to say, you know? If I have to talk about the comic for a second, I could say I could do without Princess Sally. Come at me. Should Sonic stick to 2D? Should he do a 2.5D in a pixelized style, or should he be modernized? Honestly, I kind of like the way that Sega is doing it now, where they're kind of treating, because Mania was a huge success, Forces did well. But I would say that overall, I think Sonic still works best in 2D, but I don't want Sega to stop trying. I want them to keep going and trying to make a 3D Sonic that really works out well for everybody. I mean, they've made great strides to it in the past, whether it was Sonic Colors, Sonic Generations. But I think having both of those options, because there are people out there that don't like 2D Sonic, that like 3D Sonic. There are. You know, my wife is a perfect example of that. She prefers the 3D Sonic. So I think having it just be 2D is a bad move. Because then at that point, then we're really not letting go of the nostalgia at that point. Sonic is not about going backward. He's all about going forward. So keeping a 2D style in the inevitable sequel to Mania, because I'm pretty sure it's happening, but having it keep in that 2D style, or maybe even a 2.5D style by Generations, I think would be the right way to go for that sector of Sonic, but then continue to do the 3D sectors of Sonic as well. The best of both worlds, really, if you will.